late 2010 is when I said, I think my wife and I, Carrie, we ended up trying to figure out what would be the next chapter. And that's when I committed to becoming a,
That's about when we
residential
met. I think
agent.
that's about when we met in 2010.
Yeah.
I think I was given a little song and dance about some of the niche products that I was offering,
Yeah.
and to your credit, you reached out to me after that. You're like, "Hey, man, I need some nichey stuff," and you seem like a nichey guy. So let's see what we can do together. And from that point forward, we've been partners
Yeah.
ever since. And
Yeah.
and we've been a fan, what I would consider a great ham and egg show, right? Where, I kick a deal to you, you could, but these are people that we care about that are in our inner circle. And it seems like that you learned that early on, right? On how, when you were in New York, you went there not knowing anyone, but you were able to start cultivating relationships there.
Right.
So in the financial world, and let's call it what it is. You're a social guy. You're a likable guy. And I would imagine you were probably that way in the fraternity. You were probably that way in school, very well liked, and people gravitated to you. What do you think? Where do you think that you get that attribute, right?
I really enjoy having lots of friends and making lots of connections and creating opportunities for fun. I think back in the high school days, that's what it was all about. Was
you were known as a fun guy. You had some parties that I
nothing's
know
changed 40 years later.
Yeah.
And so going back to those days, I've always been a very extrovert. But then I remember holding our high school graduation party was at our family ranch, and we brought everybody out. And so I've just always been very focused on bringing people together, creating relationships, and then really thinking strategically in business.
Okay.
Yeah. So partnerships like you and I have, it's the partnerships and it's the people, meeting people like Lee Eidelman, meeting people like Jeff Lampkin, then starting. When I ended up entering the business, began with Moreland Properties, knowing that they were one of the
their
best
branding
boutiques in Austin. And
are they still Christie's? Are they still tied to
no?
Christie's?
They had a Christie's affiliation, but I think they moved on to something called Forbes.
Great group of guys and gals over there.
Yeah, great group. Some of the best producers in Austin.
And that's who you started with.
And that's where I started.
Yeah.
And spent 7 years.
And I remember when you were
business.
transitioning, it was a struggle for you because you had those relationships. You had the people that you basically you grew up with, several of them, right? And that you loved. But you recognized that you needed to spread your wings and go with another flag. And you chose Sotheby's.
Right.
What was it about Sotheby's that got you to move that needle?
Well, a few things. One, I was very attracted to the brand.
Okay. Sexy.
You
Sexy
look
brand.
at, international real estate.
Which that says a lot, right? The brand, Moreland Properties has great branding here. They're wonderful. But you wanted something that had more of an international scope to it, and Sotheby's, because I remember you were looking at several different partners.
Yeah, I had thought about it if I were to transition to another firm, and so that brand is what appealed to me the most. Also, the broker, Jay Cooper.
Yep.
Young,
San Antonio.
Young, cutting edge, vibrant.
Has a driver.
Yeah, he really.
So that he can work.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's crushing it.
He has the same energy, and I think his personality matched mine.
Yeah.
And so with what I was doing at the time, maybe I'd grown my business to maybe $10 million a year in volume. And remember in 2014, I made this strategic decision that, getting involved in the community. And while I've never been political, had a political bone in my body, I've always been very apolitical. I just was encouraged by a number of neighbors and clients to go on the Westlake Hill City Council. There were some things going on they weren't happy about, but they wanted some representation.
Yep.
And
well, we had conversations about that
and
too.
You and I talked about that.
I remember we sat down and had a couple of lunches on that, and you may or may not remember. I said, "Bro, you are a fool not to do it with your people skills, with with what you can bring to the table, especially related to real estate and being on the inside scoop on things that were happening in the city, and to be basically to be a role model for the other members in city council, because it started to get stagnant, right?
Well, the city council had always been comprised of kind of UT professors, folks that are retired, maybe at the time, folks in software, or older residents that really weren't working.
Yep.
And at the time in 2014, I mean, this is 9 years ago. I was the youngest guy. I had no experience whatsoever with politics, and but I thought it would be good to be involved in the community.
Yep.
Not only that, to learn also how the city worked, and then with knowing that there's so much redevelopment going on, how does the city work in terms of its processes and some of the codes? What could some of the codes, of course, very I won't say antiquated or needed to be looked at, and so I looked at it as an opportunity to, okay, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
And a lot of people thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
To
Well,
do
I
this.
think I still think you're crazy, but not for that reason, for other reasons. But you did it.
But I did it, and I really thought after the first term, I'd say, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
And the mayor at that time had stepped down, and Linda Anthony had stepped up, and what's interesting is she had very serious concerns about me being on the city council.
She still does. She still does.
I know she does. And it was an interesting story because when we ran that election, she had really did know me, but of course, some of my supporters were a little extreme, and I think that was a concern, and I don't blame them. And at any rate, and by the way, when I won the election, it was only by 7 votes.
7 votes. Wow.
Yeah.
And I remember it was tight. I remember that was. And then you had the big blowout party, and you said Big D has arrived front and center on stage.
Well, I've stayed on, though, as a result of my relationship with Linda, and really we've made a lot of great strides in improving everything at the city, and there's so many needs, and so it's given me an opportunity to really now become an expert. And
people recognize that too. I mean, let's call it what it is. So now you have let's call it 9 years or 8 years on council, and I know that when you've come up for reelection, and we've had these discussions, like, oh, you know what, should I do it? And I'm like, dude, stay on it until you absolutely choose that. You know, when you'll know when that time is right. Is right. But it has I don't think there's any secret of the fact that the correlation of your business exploding, along with the city's, city special, has been in direct correlation with you going on city council.
Yeah,
that was not by mistake. That was not by accident. And part of that, at least from my standpoint, I know that you're the expert, man. You're everything real estate in this, whether it's Westlake or the other parts of town, but especially related to Westlake. That Darin is the expert, and it resonates when it's somebody coming in from town and they're considering you or somebody else to be their realtor and to represent their family. You're dialed in, and there's a lot of value in that. And I know that you understand that.
Yeah. It didn't happen right away, obviously. I mean, I would say the first 2 to 4 years, it was just business as usual. And but when I made that move from Moreland to Sotheby's, I had really things started to pick up a little bit. And then in 2 years, my business grew fivefold to 50 million.
To 50.
Yeah, from 10 million to 50 million
within 2 years,
and was number 4 in the city as a luxury agent by 2019. And so
you accomplished that in like a 10-year, less than a 10-year window, Darin.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and that's something to be commended. And what do you set the city council involvement in its own category, right? What about the relationships
Mm-hmm.
that you had before and those that you had since, from that point forward, whenever, whether when you were at your previous broker or at Sotheby's, how valuable have those local relationships been?
Yeah, I mean, you mean at the city or all over?
All over.
All
But,
over, yeah.
at the city again, we're
Mm-hmm.
assuming at that point you're a couple years in, so that
Mm-hmm.
word is starting to spread.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. So I'll interject this. I know whenever I refer you clients, and
Mm-hmm.
even more so then, I would be like, hey, here's a guy he's gonna take great care of you. You're gonna have a lot of fun with him. Oh, and it doesn't hurt that he's Westlake City Council,
Yeah.
right?
Well, at least what I'm able to do is on that vein is if someone's going to buy a piece of property to renovate or they're going to doze it and start new, at least tell you up front what can you and can you not do, and what if you need to get a variance for something, what's likely to get approved and what's not,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and or really guide them toward working with professionals who help them work with the site,
Mm-hmm.
and so then new construction has become. I mean, today it's the biggest part of my business.
Mm-hmm. Tear down new construction or some development, new
Demand,
construction. Mm-hmm.
Demand had as Austin had begun to really evolve, and the
Mm-hmm.
market's price points began to pick up, and now this drive toward, even before the pandemic, lots of demand for newer homes and lots of old housing stock,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's just a matter of time before a lot of these 70s homes are. The value of the land is worth more than the improvements.
And it's worth pointing out we're
Mhm.
landlocked.
Mhm.
Whether it's Central Austin or in this case Westlake,
Mhm.
it's unlike other markets, even our own market, where you have expansive territory that you can
Mhm.
that you can come in, move dirt, start a development, get the production builders to come in. We're talking a
Mhm.
limited supply
Yeah.
of great dirt, and to that point, a lot of the real estate that you sell and that you move, people want a city view. They want a downtown city view. They want a hill country view.
They want to be in the lake.
Maybe they want to be on the lake.
They
It
just
also
want.
a lot of it is
Mhm.
heavy topo. All right, so the
Mhm.
topography. So then they're
Mhm.
leaning on you. Hey, what
Mhm.
builder can you connect me with? What custom builder? So
Right.
I think what you clearly to me what you bring to the table, and this goes back to earlier in our
Mhm.
conversation, is it's about the relationships
Mhm.
that you have built over the years.
Right.
And you've been really good at that.
Yeah.
We talk about, your
Yeah.
Wall Street days. We talk about whether it's college or before that. But where where does that come from? Who in your life set you in that motion, or is it something that you just feel like comes naturally?
I want to say maybe it's just how I was brought up. I always watched my mother working
Mm-hmm.
really hard at what she was doing. She to this day she can't sit still.
Mm-hmm.
She gets bored.
Right.
And it's so I've always had that just kind of innate work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
Even as a
Mm-hmm.
kid, like, hey, I'm bored. I want to do something. So what I go do a lemonade stand. And in
Okay.
high school, mom had a commercial landscaping business, and I wanted to make money, and I just always wanted the freedom of what money or of having independence. So she sets me up in a commercial land, like maintaining shopping centers, and
Okay.
on
As a
as I
young as a teenager or
as
what?
I'm in school, in high school,
Oh my God.
and had four commercial shopping centers I was maintaining for Charles Morrison, and then doing lawns. And next thing you know, I'm making thousands of dollars a month in high school.
So that
And
set you off in that now, was that when she had her helicopter?
yeah, that's when she had it.
Talk about having a single mom that's a go-getter that
Yeah.
chooses to get a helicopter, right?
Well, we had a ranch north of Austin near Briggs, and so when she started a tree farm, and at one point, 300 acres with lots of fields, and at one point we had 50,000 trees
50,000
in the
trees, okay.
ground above on containers, and I'm out there.
Different species or one particular species?
Oh no, plenty of different species, lots
yeah.
of oaks, lots of. But we had a lot of. We're taking trees from nurseries that were growing bankrupt, and then plan was to grow them, and of course that was earlier 80s. But
How about that? Taking trees from nurseries that were going bankrupt. How about that business? Okay.
yeah,
I don't think I know anybody else in that industry, but
Well,
Wow.
so mom's idea was, I'm going to get a helicopter. I can fly out there quicker. It was really more.
She's flying over different nurseries.
She wanted to have a landing pad there in Westlake at the house,
Uh-huh.
and the city was not going to allow her to land a helicopter there. And